and we're going to get into the definitions of what early decision is to kind of explain the whole process in general. So, to start, early decision is a type of early admission to a college which is binding upon receiving your acceptance letter. Students are usually required to submit the application by November 1st, but make sure you do your research because sometimes it's November 15th. If you are accepted to this college, you have to attend the college. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The only way that you can get around that is if you argue that your financial aid package is not sufficient enough, but we'll get into that later. Another type of early admissions is called an early action, which is a little bit different. It's non-binding, and you receive a response early, and you still have until May 1st to accept and say that you want to go to that college.
Right, so just a few pros of doing early decision, applying early decision, is a lot of times it could be beneficial for you in terms of the chances of getting into that school. There have been some studies that say that an early decision application is worth about 100 SAT points. Some schools, it's 20% more likely to get accepted. Those numbers vary from school to school. For example, Haverford recently, 43% of their early decision applicants got accepted versus only 24% regular decision. Same with Duke, those numbers were 24% early decision, 9% regular. So the one thing to keep in mind though is when you have an early decision, you have a smaller applicant pool. So that's why your odds might be a little bit higher because more kids will apply regular decision versus early decision. Another thing is if you do get in early decision, like I did, like Keirsten did, it's kind of, once you get in early, it's stress-free for the rest of the senior year. You don't have to worry about applying regular decision, hearing back from all the schools, and then deciding which ones you want to go to. So once you're in early decision, the process is over. You can just relax and enjoy the rest of your senior year. And then if you do get denied from early admission, what happens a lot of times is rather than just getting flat out denied from the college, you'll just get deferred to regular admission, and then you get into that applicant pool, which kind of makes it seem, so it's kind of basically like applying to the school twice. You apply early decision, and then you apply with the other kids for regular decision. And then relating it to sports, a lot of times when you're getting recruited by a coach, he or she may want to get you to this school very badly, so they'll push you to go early decision. They'll say, because they'll make, in their eyes, they'll make you more of a serious prospect, more serious recruit, so you can have leverage with the coach and kind of show him or her that you really do want to go to their school and play for them.
Yeah, quite honestly, that's why I applied early decision, was because the coach approached me and said, if you apply early decision, you'll most likely you'll be able to get into the school. But one of the tips for that is make sure you get an early read on all of your admissions material, because if you get an early read on something, they'll be able to tell you if you'll get into the school or not based on your current grades and everything that you have for your application and your recommendations and everything like that. So that's always a really beneficial way to kind of tell that you will be getting into school. Ask your college coach about that, because they will be the ones who will be talking to the admissions office. Some of the cons for applying early decision are that you cannot compare financial aid packages, obviously, because if you apply early decision, you're bound to that college no matter what the financial aid package ends up being after you after they decide they want to have you at their school. So if you're unsure or really need a financial aid package, I suggest waiting on that one and applying to a bunch of different schools and doing that. But at the same time, a college coach may think that you're not interested or you're not their first choice or something like that, just because you are not doing the early decision process. Another thing is that the pressure to decide early on is pretty intense. How do you know the first time that you walk onto a campus if that's where you really want to go? So keep that in mind. If you want to apply a bunch of different places and you can't decide that on one school and you're not sure if that's the one that you want to get married to, make sure that you do your research and that you really want to go to that school, obviously, because you're bound to them. Another con, if you get denied other coaches, after you apply and they know that you applied early decision, they may say, well, you didn't apply here early decision. Are you not serious about us? Were we not your first choice? They may fear that you're going to accept the college or you're going to go to the other college if you get accepted into both. And then I want to read this really cool quote about from this article called "Racing One Another: Athletes Are Driven to Early Decisions." They are talking about how coaches and administrators say athletes are jumping in at a greater rate because worries that advantage they have in the admissions process will evaporate. So basically, it's a huge worry that if you don't apply early decision, that your spot is going to be filled by someone else. Obviously, Nick was talking about some really great stats earlier with overall, you're 20% more likely to get into a college if you apply early decision. But that doesn't mean that you're definitely going to get into that college. So there's no race to try and fill your spot, but that's just definitely something to think about. And then I applied early decision, and I think handed all my stuff in, got my early read, handed everything in, and then in December I found out, and for me it worked. I knew I wanted to go to Skidmore right away. I narrowed my college search down to 3 colleges, and I only applied to Skidmore. So personally speaking, it was really beneficial for me. And then we have somebody that had Celine, one of our interns. She had a bad experience, correct? So
right.
Nick's gonna read a bad experience.
So obviously when you apply early decision, you hear back early, and then there's going to be a long break from when you get accepted to the school and when you go to the school. So a lot of things can happen, not only to you but to the program you're interested in, whether it's a coach leaving or something along those lines. So Celine, in her experience, she went early decision, got accepted to the school, and in that meantime, the coach that had recruited her left the school. So that was one kind of downfall of going to a school so early, because you never know what's going to happen in the time you get accepted to when you actually arrive on campus. And then also with going early decision, it's a big decision. Like college in general is a huge decision at such a young age. Going early decision kind of compounds that to make it an even bigger decision, because you can only pick one and it has to be a lot earlier on in the process. So just like from my personal experience from talking to other athletes, just the biggest thing you need to make sure of when you do apply early decision is that you've done your research. This is the school for you. That, like Keirsten said, you're ready to basically marry, you're ready to commit to for 4 years. And then there's a lot of reasons that kids might apply early decision that aren't great reasons. Like everyone knows the whole application process is long and it's boring, but you don't want to apply early decision just to get it over with. You have to, in the long run, you will regret that decision. So just make sure that you have a strong application already. If for some reason you think that your application isn't great and you can add to it in the few months after or in between early decision deadline and regular decision deadline, I would say maybe wait regular decision, get your application as strong as possible, and then start applying to schools rather than just, applying to school with a weaker application.
Yeah, you don't want to apply to a really difficult school just because you want to get into it, because it's the hardest school if you don't have the grades or the application to do so. And I'm sure a coach would tell you ahead of time, but they also wouldn't appreciate that. I think the most important thing is getting an early read, to be honest with you, because the admissions office will tell you straight up, you need to increase your SAT scores, or your application isn't good enough, or, you're going to get in 100%. And then one other thing that we haven't talked about was the letter, the one that the Ivy Leagues do.
Oh, so I forget the exact term, but there are some schools that they do this for early decision. A likely letter, early decision and regular decision, but they could send you something like a likely letter, and it'll basically be saying we plan on admitting you, but you haven't been admitted yet. So it's kind of like a tough thing. It's like, oh, well, am I going to go there? Am I going in? Am I getting into that school or am I not? They kind of don't tell you right away, but they say odds are you're going to. So that's something that keep in mind, that if you get it, that's great, but just like with early decision, don't give up on other schools, on other applications just because you got that, because you never really know what's going to happen.